I am a man with many enemies.
The elevator opens for no one.
The Boston Red Sox.
And plans on making me.
The mayor of Boston. The governor of Massachusetts.
I'm paralyzed into you.
Boston Globe.
And plans on making me.
It's a war.
And plans on making me.
We're going to battle it out.
All sit there.
Everyone looks like everyone.
My dick's so big, doesn't even matter. He's 2 feet tall.
And nobody will get in trouble. Now, of course, everybody's gonna kill each other.
He's gonna fucking open his mouth, it'll fall right in.
You're too busy to accept it.
And it is going to be, when it's done, the most successful podcast in the history of mankind.
And we already met.
Listen, there's only one Minifan show.
Everyone looks like everyone.
It's right here.
And plans on making me. And plans on making me.
No protection.
And we are back for another Quantum Kirk. John and Danny, welcome back. John, how you feeling today, buddy?
Dude, good. Nothing like a good butt raping.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, we're obviously this will be released on Monday, but we are recording Wednesday afternoon. John just got reamed for about an hour today on the Kirk show.
Like
so
a solid
that's
40,
always good.
A solid 45 minutes to an hour of just like making me feel bad about myself.
Yeah. So John, I mean, we want to thank you for, being such a great producer and doing this out of your own time and not, wanting any credit for anything, John.
Yeah. I need to start thinking about what I sound like when you just just take out me. It's bad. There was a good, I would say, 40 minutes of that episode where I just thank Kirk for like just even thinking about the fan network and like all the skills I have are because of Kirk. But hey, I'll tell you what, you're a good producer if you don't add that. So shout out to Coleman and Gus.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kirk also said, I mean, that was kind of light. That was light work. He said he liked you and that you were a candidate. So that was light work. So yeah, it was good stuff.
And he was like, and he'll probably take this with thick skin. And that's exactly what I did. It sucks. Like, I'm such a piece of shit. It sucks. I wish I was the worst. Yeah, fuck it.
I mean, you've been predicting this in every appearance and every other show I've listened to. I haven't heard the Scranton podcast yet, but you keep saying the other shoe's going to fall, and this might have been half a shoe. It sounds like I only got to hear the first little bit of it, but I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the night.
If anything, maybe Kirk will pay attention a little bit more to a couple of our shows, just waiting for it. But I doubt that's the case.
Well, now that you just said that, you can fucking forget about that. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Great.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
And so let's get into it, Danny. As we start.
Wait, didn't we change the name of the show, Daver? Isn't this Quantum Diva? Isn't that correct?
Jesus. Yeah, that fucking Barstool Advisor, that fucking cocksucker.
How dare
say that.
you?
No, I don't care, dude. I'm leader of the Bandits, might be resigning soon. That guy just loves to not listen to the show, but then tell us what we should be doing with the show. It's his favorite part of Mike and the Minifans. I think, honestly, if I'm going to be honest with you, I do think it's because Kirk always says that this is his favorite show on the network. And I think BA gets a little jelly, a little salty over that, to be completely honest. That's my working
he
theory.
mentions Mike and the Minifans in the same breath. He says
in the same breath.
Too,
in the same breath. So it's just like BA's like, oh, I don't listen much, but I think those guys should just let everyone else host the show. Oh,
and Mike and the Minifans was a great show
idea.
until this last weekend. That was pretty bad.
Yeah,
BA basically it was just a him on loop saying, "I agree with you, Manners. I agree with you, Manners. I agree with you, Manners."
Yeah, the way he sucks Manners off now, it's crazy. It's like, buddy, can you just Manners is the CEO? Great, you can disagree with him. Can you disagree with him, BA, one time for the folks? Christ, if you want some constructive criticism, disagree with Manners. Next episode, one time. Over under on that, 1. He'll come in under. Fucking BA. All right. Anyway, that shit's over.
Back to
Danny,
the show.
As we start off every Quantum Kirk, what is the name of the episode and what is the date that we re-listened to today?
So this episode is titled "The Rules," and it's January 4th, 2022. So about almost 2 years ago now.
So, and I think it's probably the latest episode that we reviewed on this show. To be honest with you, Danny, I think. It's a Cullinan era episode.
It is, and speaking of rules, I know you like to talk about how we stay in the first 2 years of the show. Which honestly, I don't think I ever really agreed to that rule. I think it's good to kind of break out of that. I do like staying towards the older ones, but I think when something like this comes about that makes sense with what's going on in the present, it does make a lot of sense to revisit.
Rules are made to be broken.
I think we keep it. I mean, the fact it was almost 2 years ago is far enough ago that there was a lot in here I've forgotten. There were a couple of fun surprises.
Yeah, so I think rules are made to be broken. I think we started this off doing only Robinson episodes, but that's fine. We'll bend them a little bit here. So this is the first show of the new year of 2022. Kirk mentions that. He also mentions, you're right, Dave, it's like a kind of circle right now, because what he means by the rules, can you explain to people what the rules are that they talk about in this episode?
So at this point, January 4th, the first 2 episodes of At a Theater Near Me, starring our friend Chris Klemmer, who, by the way, we only recently found out his last name at this point. He was Quantum Week Chris for quite a while leading up to this.
Yes. They fucked up his name. Didn't they call him Clemming a couple of times and they had to correct themselves? Yeah.
And it's like, no, those are his followers. They're the Clemmings. His name is Chris Klemmer. The first 2 episodes are out. So just a few minutes into the podcast, they start talking about basically Chris Klemmer laying down the ground rules for At a Theater Near Me. Of course, his challenge is to see a movie, 365 movies in 365 days. And he can't see the same movie twice. So he goes through and kind of lays out all the little details. He gives examples of each one, which Kirk jumps down his throat for. I think in some cases justified, in other cases maybe not so much. But they do a really funny breakdown of him going through that process on the podcast, laying down the ground rules for At a Theater Near Me.
Yeah, so and I do think so. It's kind of funny because I know, Danny, you didn't listen today, but if you listen to today's show, and it sucks that this comes out on Monday. It's like, because I think we always do today. Maybe it's something we should stop doing, but I don't know how else to do it.
Well, it's like the Nardini stuff. I think Kirk poked at us for that because what we said was a week old. Then actually the next day you texted me saying, they just talked about what we recorded last night, but our episode's not coming out for another 6 days. So
it's a little rough sometimes. But they talked about on today's show, Danny, how if you don't like the Gus episode, they were saying that some people were saying that they didn't like the Gus episode from the day before, where Gus was doing the list, right? The top 50 parody songs or whatever list to Casey Kasem's, whatever the fuck Gus was talking about. So that if you don't like that, then you just don't like the show, because even Kirk said, and I think us three have said this a lot, the best part of the Kirk Minahan show is when Kirk and Mike volley back and forth, breaking down a video, breaking down audio, breaking down something that, they both find really funny, and they just kind of lob the tennis ball back and forth. And Kirk mentions on today's show that that's what that Augustus episode was, and that if you don't like that, then you just don't like the show. And I feel like that's exactly what they did with this Klemmer audio, was, breaking down Klemmer's rules, and they just hit that ball back and forth for a good 10 to 15 minutes.
It was up there with a Steve, my good man type back and forth.
We have to review that.
I think we might have to see if we get Mr. Cullinane himself on for that one.
That'd be a great one.
I don't know if we'll get Steve. He might only come with Kirk. We'll see. But John, maybe it might be a good spot, since we have our producer on the spot with clips queued up, ready to go. By the way, no big deal. I cut the clips myself. So, fucking Diva Danny over here doing a little work. Yeah. And John's kind enough to play them here as we hit it. So if you want to hit clip number 1 there, John.
A bing. Yeah, I missed.
You hear him lose the enthusiasm.
I'll say this. I'm not hearing a lot of fun so far in that podcast.
No. But I think he's very enthusiastic. And you can tell he's definitely nervous.
I agree.
And I think it'll be fun in March when he clearly loses that enthusiasm and is like another one of these fucking things.
I guess, yes. First of all, it should be every day, no question.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't, from the first episode, if you really want to break it down. So we all love Chris. He's part of the show. It's called At a Theater Near Me. Go subscribe right now. I retweeted the first episode. I think the show did as well. We're rooting for the show to do well. He spent on the first episode, I would say, roughly 4.5 hours breaking down the rules of what the podcast is going to be,
and then giving examples on said rules.
Right? Yeah, he went very in depth on the rules, which is it's pretty. And then he'd be like, "Well, I might break these rules." It's
good to know.
But what are they?
So first rule is one movie a day.
Okay.
So I can't go and see, a triple header and then take
we got it, Chris. We know. Yeah. So one movie a day is the first rule. That's
but he could see two. He said he couldn't see three. He could see like 2 movies a day.
No, he can only see one.
No, he just said that he couldn't see a triple header.
Right.
But if you wanted to see like 2 or 4.
No, Mike, his first rule is one movie a day.
So first rule is one movie a day.
So you get that now?
All right.
That's by the way, that's the first rule.
Right.
That's the golden rule.
You got to remember he's speaking to people like me. I think that's his audience. We don't quite get those things as easy.
No, I understand. Okay, go ahead. Do we have the other rules, Dave?
It can be the same theater in back-to-back days. For instance, I went to Regal Concord.
Okay, so we don't need for instances at that point. Everybody listening understands what that means. Everyone. If you don't understand that, you are not capable of turning on the fucking podcast. You're not capable of having a phone.
Right.
Like we're just not capable of these things. Now I tend to maybe talk too much sometimes, but when you say, and I can't do a Chris impression, but when he says, you can go to the same theater 2 days in a row, we're good. You don't need a for instance there. Like for instance, I saw a movie, The Regal, yesterday, and I went to this one today. Well, we know.
So yeah, like they go back and forth like that. It's definitely a great re-listen. I would encourage everyone, if you're watching this, to definitely go back and re-listen to that as well. It's interesting because what do you guys think? Like, I've never done like a solo podcast. I would find it, I think, extremely hard to go 20, 25 minutes, a half hour doing solo. Like when I listen to the old Montante's Worlds, he started doing them off like in his car alone. Now he does like 2-hour episodes with guests. Like before, he would do like 20, because it's just like you have nothing to bounce back from. So I could see that being really hard for Chris. I actually give him a lot of credit for even attempting.
I'm going to defer to the gentleman below me here on the screen. As you know, there's the world famous John from Scranton Super Short Show, which I believe he hosted solo.
Boy, oh boy, did I not want to defer to me.
It was the most magical 3-minute podcast every day for about 6 months. I think. John talks to himself a lot on screen.
Yeah,
I've probably watched more of John talking to himself than I'd like to admit by quite a bit. So
it's harder to talk about myself today of all days, but I would say this to people, like doing a podcast alone is when you realize if you could do this or not. If you could talk to yourself, then you could talk to anyone. That's my rule. If you could talk to yourself for 20 minutes and people like your brain conversation with yourself, then you could do this with that. Then anyone can do this. Now, let's go back to me. I did this for apparently just Danny, and I am not good at it. The Jump from Scranton show was terrible, and I should be shot in the head.
Yeah, but
I listened every day. But yeah, I'm probably not the best bellwether for
exactly.
professional success in broadcasting.
So with Chris doing the At a Theater Near Me, this is like you said, Danny. This is like fairly new of him. Like he's still doing Quantum Week. He hasn't left Matt yet. He hasn't ditched him yet. So they talk about that, and it's interesting to see where Chris is. Also, it's funny. We're going to get into it a little here. They talk about Jared as Carabas comes up in the beginning of the episode, his contract negotiated with Barstool. It's funny. Carabas leaves Barstool, and now Clemmer's at Barstool. So like it's kind of like totally full circle, like re-listening to this. Danny, did that caught your attention at all?
That did stick out at me because actually when I was going through a couple other episodes for future recordings, there's the one where Clemmer and Carabas have a little showdown, if you recall, that they did not particularly get along well. And I don't know if they still do or not. I mean, they don't really interact anymore, I would guess. This is now, like you said, they're a different company.
Well, I mean, I think Clemmer called him like talentless, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that Carano at one point? I think it might have been, I take it back. I think it might have been Carano saying that he thought Clemmer was more talented on air, that he was more talented on air than Jared Carabas. Yes, I think when he was guest producing the show.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't necessarily disagree with. But
ooh, wow.
Dang.
Wow, I know. Throwing fucking darts here,
did you go to the Quantum Week live show? Were you one of those?
Hey, Kirk went, so
I did not, but I was always a Quantum Weeker.
Were you?
What I always enjoyed was I liked their review. I liked any of their behind the scenes stuff. So especially if they reviewed, it's great. Reviewed a movie that I was familiar with or really liked or had just seen, I always enjoyed going back and listening because they talk about, alternate cast members. Danny DeVito was going to play this guy and end up being, whoever.
Well, I think for the most part, what everyone said about that show, I wasn't a huge listener because I just wasn't a Carano guy. I thought Chris was pretty good. I was never a Matt guy at all. I didn't find him entertaining on the show at all. But from what everyone said is the movie part of that show was way better than the music part of that show.
In general, I mean, it was always a little bit more featured, so the Clemmer part of it was a little bit more, I guess, more weighted towards Clemmer and the movie part. But I think Carano offered more to the movie part than Clemmer offered to the music part. The music part was more of a Carano sort of dishing on whatever it was. There were a couple times, he got really behind the scenes on some of the musical stuff, like, if it was anything by Toto or some of the bands that he's really into, he'd go like super deep on some of it. And I actually thought some of that was pretty interesting, to the point where they probably had their best fights over that. Because Carano sometimes would go on to the point where, I think he made, speaking of Toto, he referenced the fact that I believe the drummer from Toto died from pesticides. Like he was out mowing his lawn and just, collapsed, which Clemmer thought was hilarious, made fun of Carano. Carano took offense and they had like a 3-week fight over the drummer from Toto. So they're just little things like that. And that's where, and Carano, I think he did really well on that podcast. He was very different with Kirk. And I understand that. I mean, I think a lot of people certainly are. But I think they had a really good rapport going, a few months into that, especially. And then they would do the part that we stole. Obviously, we not only stole part of their name that they stole from someone else, but the little segment where we say, oh, what were we doing at that point? Like they would talk about that week in their lives. If they had something special going on. I actually thought they both did a really good job with that. That was usually, somewhat interesting.
So I guess the other thing I want to bring up is, do you think Chris does bring back a theater near me? I haven't seen him tweet about it since Kirk told him that, Nick was going to do it. Do you think that, Kirk, they haven't got any submissions? Do you think that even happens where someone actually, I know Cinema Lord Nick will be coming in, I think Friday's show, if I'm not mistaken. So
if Clemmer doesn't do the show, he's a fucking pussy. Do the fucking show, Clemmer, you fucking bitch. Period.
Okay.
That's it.
For the second he went to Barstool, I was hoping that Clemmer would bring this with him. I mean, this works perfectly as a Barstool podcast, I think, as long as it's done right. And Kirk gives him some valid feedback, which maybe we'll get to here after the next clip.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think there's a few things that could, now that he's already had a shot at it, if he adjusts, could make it a pretty popular podcast, especially as it gets towards the end of the year, if he's able to keep it up. But yeah, John, if you want to hit number 2 there, it's a little bit of an extension on the rules, but still pretty. This is probably the best of the back and forth between Blind Mike and
I went to see his second movie. Went to see was a movie that's 70 years old.
Yes, but that's not.
It's playing in one screen in America yesterday, probably.
See, you're a perfect example of why he's laying out these rules. You seem to not understand it because you weren't listening.
Yeah, but you can see it twice, though, right?
No, what do you? Out of your mind?
But he can't go that. Okay, yes, but he can see it twice, but he couldn't see it in the same theater.
Well,
he can't go to the same theater back.
You actually have that backwards. He could, in fact, go to the same theater. He could not see the film twice. He can see it twice on his own time.
What if it's 50? What if it's 56 minutes?
No.
Well, it's an hour and 6 minutes.
You'd have to sit there for another 4 minutes.
Then he's fine.
Yeah.
What if it's a concert?
Give me the release. What are the release numbers?
212 screens.
I believe so. Yes.
82 screens.
I'm not so sure. I don't think so. That doesn't seem
enough. So what you're saying is he has not defined that rule properly.
I believe he in his mind knows what a wide
Mike is like his fucking lawyer. We all like the guy.
I understand. I have been in his position.
You enjoy listening to this?
Whether it's him berating Justin for no reason at all or starting an insane podcast. I understand where the man is coming from.
We broke Mike down, now we're breaking Chris down.
I'm trying to avoid
actually.
Oh man, we broke Mike down, now we're breaking Chris down. Which actually, like, once again, fucking Kirk was right. It happens. Like, it actually happens. Chris and him have gone at it a few times now. Kicking Chris out of the Wilbur will be an all-time moment for sure.
That's a good
and
moment of the show, kicking Chris out of the Wilbur. That's about that.
But also too, how about the Blind Mike and Chris, like a friendship, or like they're pretty icy now. I don't think they're on the greatest of terms. I think Mike has taken some shots at Chris ever since Chris left to go to Barstool or whatever. And here, Mike is, Chris's biggest supporter, almost Justin-like in his defense of Clemmer here. Danny, what did that get you going a little?
Yeah, and I know their relationships evolved and changed, over this period. But Mike was right there supporting him. you'll notice, and not to jump ahead too much, but you hear in a little bit, Kirk gives his grade. I think he finally settles on a C+. That's after Cullinane, I guess, fluctuating between a D and a D+. Yeah, I think a D- in there too. But yeah, he never made it above D+. And Mike never actually gave a grade, I don't believe. So I think he wanted to kind of sit back a little bit. He was doing his Mike thing where he defends someone, but he doesn't necessarily stick his neck all the way out. But he did want people to know, like, hey, look, give it a chance. Because he says, this is the best part. I didn't include this clip because it was just too much. But the whole topic gets brought up because Mike's like, oh, so did you listen to the new podcast? What'd you think? And Kirk's like, do you really want the truth? And then after Kirk gives him the truth in his mind, or at least what he's kind of pretending to be the truth at initially, Mike comes back with, it's really hard to judge a podcast on the pilot. It's really too early. And Kirk's like, well, why the fuck are we even talking about this then? Like, let's just wait till, March. So, I think Mike, and it's good. I think Mike was being a good friend there. And, I think Clemmer, really has, provided some entertainment over the years. And I think, he's always been, I know, responsive to me whenever I've reached out to him, whatever. So, I think the whole drama with him leaving, and I think a lot of that was justified with like the Celtics game and everything. And then coming back into the fold, I'm glad he's kind of around again. And I think he's, generally sort of knows his place in the world and how he stands with Kirk. But what I love about him potentially going back and doing this is the kind of stuff I think, because Clemmer did, the podcast got better. He got practice. He started to learn what people liked, what they didn't like. It improved over time. And I think, he needs to get back what he's good at, what he knows he's good at. Like, I'd like to see the 95 Mariners come back. I mean, some of this stuff.
So that's honestly the best thing
all the best things he's ever done. He just abandons.
Right. Like the 95 Mariners thing is the best thing he ever did. Like, ever did, as far as just like, even if you didn't check in for the whole thing, you could check in minutes here and there, and he was fairly entertaining. And then, like, honestly, I know Montante said this before. He gave him the idea of, like, you should be, simulating that, and then, like, putting out bets, like simulating a game from that night, like a baseball game that's coming up, like a Mets game or something, and then, like, betting on what the simulation, like, does, which I thought was a decent idea. I know
that was a very good idea.
Gambling.
Yeah, and that's got Barstool written all over it, more so than this. And Mike actually says Clemmer's becoming the movie guy, almost like he's the next Jeff D. Lowe in the making. This is before Jeff D. Lowe was really Jeff D. Lowe, though. But yeah, no, absolutely. The 95 Mariners thing was just right in his wheelhouse and in Barstool's wheelhouse. So yeah, it'd be great. Maybe he gets some success with this and can bring that back as well.
So let's say this though does come, but he hasn't tweeted about this since. So like, I don't know if like behind the scenes, Kirk hasn't given an update on like whether Clemmer's going to do it or not. So I'm interested to see what shakes out with that. I do think that one of the criticisms Kirk gave in this episode, just too long. Something like this should be literally, I would say 8 to 10 minutes. And Cullinane even said on YouTube, which he's correct. This is built for a video sort of like content, not necessarily just audio content.
One thing that's always held Clemmer back is he says, like, I need to produce, like, he's always held back by what his skills were, like technologically or all that kind of stuff. And it's held him back from doing the shows that I think he could have done best because he's so like selfish about the IP, basically. It's weird. It's always held because he won't have a producer help him with stuff. It's odd. I always found it odd back in the day. He was like, it's only what I can do. It's like, get help. There's hundreds of people that'll help you with that.
Well, and I,
even the video concepts alone, like you said, Dave, it's that would help the show. Like make it, like your fans are saying it.
Yeah, listening to this just audio, just that it wouldn't hit right. It wouldn't hit the same, in my opinion.
No. I agree.
I think Cullinane says that on the show. By the way, I think Cullinane says
he does. He says, he says like make it 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever. But make it 10 minutes, put it on YouTube, whatever. But it's funny that you say that, John, because I do remember from that period of time that actually he had the same back and forth that we did with Menners, and actually we didn't actually reject Menners' help, but he likes to say that, and we kept John from Scranton as our producer, despite Menners rallying to have you thrown in the trash multiple times.
Classic.
So thank you for that. But the fact is, Menners offered publicly multiple times, Chris, I'll help you out. Like oh, you bought a Roadcaster, great. Well, why don't you figure out, I could teach you how to use it, or hey, here's this. Here's the equipment you need to do this from your car. Don't wait till you get home. Like everyone was kind of saying that, like, do it at the theater, do it in the car, do man on the street, interview some old man sitting in the theater, find out where he's from. because when Kirk talks about what he would do, he gets into that. He says that the movie talk itself, especially if you're doing fucking Gone with the Wind or something, should be minimal. The focus should be on the theater, the people who were there, freaking what the weather was like, what you ate, other things that were happening, like the human interest part of it.
Kind of like what he does with that New York City, like landmark stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, like that stuff would fit in perfectly.
That's where I have kind of, and this sounds terrible, but like unlimited faith in Klemmer's brain, because kind of anything he does, we all kind of find just enjoyable to check in on. Like no matter what, the 95 Mariners, like we all are just like, oh, I'll check it out. It's Klemmer. He's a fucking weirdo, and I like the way he talks. So it's like he's good for Barstool in that aspect, because anything he does is weird enough to watch once.
Yeah. So I guess that's like the theater me talk. They kind of get into it. What else caught your eye, Danny, about that segment of the show?
Well, actually, we got another fun little clip here. If John, you want to pop that up. This was actually, I thought, one of the funnier rules, because so he gets shit for going through and explaining all these rules.
I think it was a half-hour episode. That's crazy.
And I get that. And look, I don't think anyone on this screen can really shit on anybody else for talking too much. And Kirk even admits it. He says, "Look, I get it. I sometimes over-explain things," and maybe he did that at times. But the fact is, he explained some things, and then there were questions about them. So, like the length of the movie, and it can be under an hour, over an hour, versus a film festival compilation. A few different things like that actually needed explanation that didn't really get it. But then this one, I think, was just kind of bizarre. Came out from nowhere. So the next one there, John, if you don't mind.
If you don't mind.
25-40-ish.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Oh, yeah. It should be 5. The first one was long, right? Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't need, the rules were like 18 minutes.
Well, they're very intricate rules.
No sneaking in food unless the theater allows it.
Hold on.
Sneaking in.
So I don't understand. What does he mean by that? That's a good point. Are you sneaking in food? Good. Okay, fine. Right. You're right.
Good for you, son. What do you have today?
Well, that's illegal.
What are you munching?
Boy, we're losing money on that.
You probably didn't know we sell it here. Go ahead.
That's popcorn and candy. No, yep, I can understand. Theater 4. Yep, enjoy the show. No sneaking in food unless the theater allows it. The 1 and 4 o'clock showings today are allowing food being snuck in.
Yes, no handguns unless they're all right with it.
Go ahead.
No sneaking in food unless the theater allows it.
It's funny listening to this podcast like more and more, because I completely forget how we started with this guy. I'm like, oh yeah, that
is Johnny Carson. It finishes with Johnny Carson.
Yeah, it's Johnny
Carson. Which is
Carson.
so true. So of course, what's hilarious, I don't have to explain to people why that's funny, but once you sneak, if you're sneaking it in, then and they're allowing it, then it's not sneaking. But it is funny. I'll contradict myself here, because I did just say, I agree with Kirk. He should be talking more about things other than the movie, like a lot more. And in some episodes he did. He got into the theater and stuff. But like the sneaking in food thing, I think almost turned into, this is what led to budget month, where it's like no one really gives a shit. Like if he really had a limit and that stuck to it, that'd be one thing. And he says he wants to do this whole thing for under 10 grand. Yeah. But he put way too much credence into people actually giving a shit about how much money he's spending, and he do the breakdown at the end of every episode. I spent $5 on gas today, and it's a little cheaper in New Hampshire than it is Massachusetts. No one gives a flying fuck. Like,
just
tell us more about
budget month is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, the idea of budget month is crazy.
Oh, hey, marketing team month together. First promotion, we're hitting them with fucking budget month.
Budget month, yeah. Let's go. I spent under 10,000. Yay!
Yeah. He talked about his Regal car.
We're desperate for a sponsor.
I understand the concept. I do think that should be an element, and I liked his transparency there. Well, I spent $100 in a hotel room in Concord because I had to stay over because
it's weird
because of the weather. But there was way too much focus on that, I think. And then the concessions month thing actually was sort of interesting because he did get it, but that shouldn't have just been a month. That should have been, I don't know, all the time, I guess.
So
the Raisinets at this place in Salem, New Hampshire were great.
You know what else jumped out at me, though? I think Kirk mentioned, he's like, going back to doing the solo pod, he's like, I don't think Chris should do this alone. I'm not saying have a guest, the same guest, but he's like, I think, a second person, either interview someone in the movie theater, I think was Kirk's ideas. then Clemmer took that, and then didn't he have like a bunch? Didn't he have
Warthog?
It's like no, and then he had like Warthog like a bunch to the point where it was like, and it was like who was the absolute worst? Like even
mystery guest
like,
Warthog.
Yeah, Warthog, and Blind Mike was like, why? Like why the fuck is Warthog on this show?
Warthog's
like,
Blind Mike's like, I don't even want to talk to Warthog that much.
Yeah,
Warthog's
exactly.
my favorite person to see in the wild because he's exactly like your brain thinks. Like he's exactly that person. He's just like a weird, like, why are you lurking over there? Warthog, just like skulking. Yeah. He became the co-host
for a little bit, and then Blind Mike and Kirk just absolutely skewered him, and then I think he kind of got bullied off. I think Tim Ridgolds guest hosted that a couple times, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they went to see a movie together in Maine. Yeah, I think him and Ridgolds. And that was one of the better episodes, because he was telling stories about, Ridgolds sneaking in Jägermeister or something, so there was like some other elements to it.
So so I think he took some of Kirk's advice. There's another sneaky little line that got in here, boys, that I want to bring up that is kind of relevant to like right now, especially from the news that might come out that someone might actually attempt this from the Kirk Minahan world, is Kirk goes like this, this is right up, because Cullinane's saying how this isn't up his alley, that a theater near me wouldn't be something that he would listen to. And this,
it from day one.
Yeah. And Kirk goes, I would like this. I'm a movie nerd. Like he goes, I'm the type of guy that can just read box office numbers all day. I could listen to a guy read box office numbers all day. And what is
great segue, Dave? John hit it.
I didn't know you had that, Danny. I didn't know you had that, Danny.
Magnanimous.
Hold on.
3150
being magnanimous.
Oh, no, he hates it. He fucking hates it. I enjoy it because look, I could listen to a guy go down the box office charts for 50 hours.
No, you could not.
Sure, I could.
Not the way he did it there.
No, certainly not that way. Okay, but I'm saying I could listen to somebody. I could listen to me do it. Put it this way: if I did the podcast, it would be really good.
Sure,
that's all. So you should just hire me to do it.
I don't know.
Didn't you want?
What do you mean you don't know?
I don't know if anybody could save this.
I would do a movie in a different state every day.
That'd be interesting. I have to quit this.
50 movies, 50 states, 50 days.
Yeah, I still think the concept.
Yeah, but Dave, you gotta remember then, it's like I'm doing 10 minutes at some diner with some guy who's lived in this little town in Idaho for 68 years. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing the, Humphrey Bogart. Yeah, he kind of peaked in 1950. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
So Danny, thank you. I didn't know that was one of the clips you pulled. Great pull.
So Kirk to add a theater near me, baby.
Yeah, well, or not even that. I'm talking BO Boys. Like that's his favorite podcast to go on. That's who he talks. The Box Office Boys. He said he could read, box office for 50. You could listen to someone talk box office for 50 hours. And I think one of the BO Boys, if I'm not mistaken, Clayton, has been the one to throw his name in as a possible host of this show as well. So I just found that interesting that it's come full circle with Kirk talks that he could listen to someone talks box office in his favorite podcast outside of the Barstool Kirk Minahan world is called Box Office Boys. So I just found that to be quite interesting.
No, absolutely. And I think he also, brings up the fact that he would do 50 movies in 50 states in 50 days. So he could almost do a mini version of this, the 50-50-50 challenge or something like that. If he doesn't want to do the whole 366 with this year being a leap year.
Yeah. Do you think what people have talked about that a theater near me with Chris living in New York would be cheating at this point?
It'd be hard to do. It'd be hard to pull.
No, it's easier. It's easier.
It is easy. Yeah, if you want to get some variety to it. Yeah. I don't know. It does take some of that other element out of it. I guess. Yeah. I got confused with the rules. I'm thinking, well, you can't go to a different theater in New York every day, but that's not the rule. The rule is you can't see the same movie twice. Yeah. So I already forgot that. Yeah. I think. I liked when he did the little trips, like. When he had the weather thing. So when he had the weather issue and he kind of playing that little loop up in New Hampshire and tried to get away from the storms. And he started incorporating weather reports, into, I don't know if I can make it. There's going to be a big blizzard coming. I think some of that was actually, that kind of made it entertaining because then he's trying to save money on the hotels and figure that out. So I think it's okay to be based in New York and do this. And yes, maybe it gives you a little bit of an out. So come, September 9th, when there's just, you just can't get out and he has to go see a movie next door at a theater, he's got one or two go-to theaters or even half a dozen or more theaters he can get to in maybe half an hour. I don't think it's a cop-out. I think that makes that aspect of it a little bit less interesting, but I think it also gives them a chance to complete it, a better chance to finish it. As long as there's other elements planned. So as part of a trip, I mean, this Cinema Lord guy was talking about going to fucking Europe and Africa and South America. And I know that
that wasn't Cinema Lord. That wasn't Cinema Lord.
Oh, who was it?
That was another guy just threw his hat.
Some other guy. All right. Well, so I don't know. I know he was kind of half joking around, and Mike brought up the point. He's like, well, if you fly to freaking Taiwan.
Yeah, I think that was a joke, Danny.
You lose a day. It's impossible. So that may have been a bit tongue in cheek.
Math. The math just doesn't work out.
Yeah. Or you lose it, you gain a day. It depends on which direction you're going, but you're not gonna be able to see a movie every day.
We got it.
I don't think the guy who's gonna host a theater near me, Danny, is taking a trip to Zimbabwe to watch a fucking movie. All right, that's just something that I'm gonna throw out there, Danny.
He might as well watch a movie on Uranus.
Yeah, Kirk would go nuts after that show, dude. He would never be able to pull that off. There's 0% chance.
But to combine that, I mean, the Kirk. That's why I like the Kirk thing, which is trying to get in every state. You're seeing a movie in every state. It's like the running a marathon in every state kind of thing. Yeah, I like that. So I think as long as and I think the idea of having a competing podcast would be great. So if Clemmer's doing it, somebody else is trying to do it too. Maybe they're it turns into Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or the Amazing Race or something, and they're running into each other. Trying to sabotage each other. There could be something to that. But there would definitely have to be a travel element. If Chris just sits in New York, and does the whole thing there, then that kind of sucks after a while. Yep.
So a couple of other things that jumped out at me. Is there anything else about the Out of Theater Near Me stuff, or do you want to?
So there's one last clip, and it actually ties in with how it ends. Kirk was right once again. So if you want to hit that last one there, Johnny, 109.50.
109 or 50.
We'll kind of wrap this up. So, yeah, and I'll get to my last point on this, and then
what if he gets COVID?
Well, that's that's what you took.
I think if he gets COVID, he'll still go.
Exactly.
He's not going to tell you.
He should.
He should.
That's what he should do. Yeah.
Damn right. Yeah, I think he will.
Infect the nation. That's the slogan for Out of Theater. Infecting.
I think he'll put the mask on, but I think he'll still go. I mean, if you think about it, if you're Chris, you get COVID, right?
Yeah.
It's really what now? They basically say it's 5 days worth of being potentially infectious. Is that right?
Yeah, they shortened it because some guy at Delta wanted him to.
Right. You're right. They just fucking make up these rules.
Yeah, right. 5 days.
So if he goes to see in those 5 days, weekday movies, fucking no one's going to be in the theater.
Right.
He's fine.
I agree.
Don't you think, Dave?
I agree with you.
Yeah, but he's touching things.
The argument could be it's exclusively old people that would be joining him in the theater.
So you don't piss or right. You just go there. You know what you can do? Food-wise, sneak it in.
You got to sneak it in.
Sneak it in.
Do they allow it?
Yeah.
No sneaking in food unless the theater allows it.
See, that's a problem.
The theater might allow food. Maybe.
So, Danny, you said Kirk was right. Kirk was wrong. Kirk was wrong by that clip. He said Clemmer would continue to go, that he'd just wear a mask. I don't think he realized how much of a big pussy Clemmer was.
The show ended because of it.
I guess
show ended because of COVID in 2022. That's wild. COVID was done by then. It was done by that spring. No one gave a fuck anymore. No one gave a fuck.
As someone who didn't go in a studio 3 weeks ago because I had COVID, I can't really criticize that. However, it is interesting because Clemmer and Kirk actually does say at that point, he's like, just stop fucking testing. I understand the concept, but not always realistic. When you're not making all your own decisions for yourself. That aside, it is interesting because I do believe he went to Sonic the Hedgehog 19 with like a fever of 105 and then didn't go to the movies the next day, right? Wasn't it something like that?
It was something like that. It was in April. It was like everyone was over it by that point. Like it was literally over. You were only
he literally had a fever though. It wasn't like he tested and was asymptomatic. I mean, he was like actively sick. So I mean, I guess I don't know.
So what, you'd expect to not get sick for 366 days? Like it's gonna happen.
Of course, but if you're like sweating and barfing and what, I mean, are you gonna place your podcast over the people sitting next to you? Look, I get it. If you can go to a theater and sit by yourself isolated, then great. But look, no matter if it's COVID or not, it's an asshole move to show up to a crowded public space, hacking, coughing with a fever.
So I think to Kirk's point though, a matinee and a fucking Wednesday for 2 hours, you're not going to be in a crowded fucking space, brother. You're just not.
So I don't know. I'm saying, why didn't he do that?
He should have did a show talking like you can see if there's people in a theater by buying your ticket where you pick your seat normally. Like try your hardest to get it at a theater where there's nobody at it or something like that. You know, it's like find a theater there's no one at.
I got an easy answer for you. He didn't want to do it anymore.
Boom.
I got an easy answer for you. Like, he literally tried out for Barstool Idol later that summer.
Yeah.
He, I think, was already like getting, was on the show now for a few months. He was hearing stuff about, like, I'm not saying he knew he was going to get the Barstool job or anything like that, but I just think he thought, okay, like, I really don't want to do this anymore. Summer's coming. I don't want to do this like in the summer on vacation or whatever the hell it may be. And COVID wasn't still a somewhat of an easy out at that point. I mean, I think that's pretty simple of an answer.
Yeah, that may be true. That may be true.
Yeah.
We'll have to have Chris on and ask him.
Addicted to the clout.
We'll have to do a follow-up.
As a fellow clout guy, he is addicted to the clout.
Well, you're right. I mean, he did. He tried out for Barstool Idol was what, 2 months later, because this was April. I think he dropped out. By the way, so I guess you're right. Kirk was off on his prediction. He gave the over/under as March 1st.
Danny's he's like, how can Kirk be wrong?
I'm gonna be the one to get shit for this, though. That's the problem.
Don't worry.
Well, actually, you know what's funny, Danny? He mentioned us on the show the other day, and he quoted you said something, and he gave it to me. I'm always the one who gets quoted as saying it. And half the time,
listen to these two.
And half the time it's fucking Danny.
Fucking this.
It is. It's usually, well, Daver, that fat piece of shit, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and he's like, who's DJ Sully Sullivan? You know,
my favorite voice is when
it's your
Kirk
buddy, and
makes
he's
fun
like,
of
Daver, fuck.
My favorite voice is when Kirk makes fun of people on the network yelling at each other. He's like, "This motherfucker fucking said this. Fucking fuck you." It's the best.
I did feel bad for him though. Like when he fell the other day, and like if he was really hurt and like needed help, and like the last thing he was listening to was me and fucking stupid Danny talking, that would have been an awful way to go out.
Yeah.
That would have been an awful way to go out.
Dude, if someone picked up that phone and got that proof, that's $1 million picture.
You almost killed him with yelling out Banana Land. He thought he slipped on a banana peel and went down hard and almost died.
I hate you.
You almost killed Kirk, Daver.
Yeah, I hate
that's
you.
all your fault. That's legendary, though. That's legendary.
All right, so there was a few other parts of this episode. It wasn't all a theater to me. It wasn't all clever. There was some interesting stuff at the very beginning of the episode where they talk about Jared Carrabis's contract with Barstool, that he was actually out of contract at this point because it is the new year. So his contract had run out with Barstool. His agents hadn't heard. Kirk says that his agents hadn't heard from Barstool in over a week or two. But that Kirk was still confident that he would come back and he would think he would resign. So another tough minute here for Kirk. Kirk was wrong on this one again. Yeah, I know. This is crazy. And that he had other solid offers. And they were speculating, and, Blind Mike and Cullinane were saying, it's crazy. Why wouldn't, Barstool re-sign him, this, that, and the other? And we found out why. I mean, he got $1 million offer from DraftKings. Like, and Portnoy's gone on record as saying that was the gold rush, and Jared got out at the right time. That no one is handing out contracts like that anymore in the gambling space. As you can see, like, Penn has already pivoted from Barstool, and they paid $500 million, and they gave it back to Portnoy for $1. So Jared was, got out of there at the right moment as far as cashing in. So did anything jump out at you, Danny, during that whole conversation, knowing what we know now?
What I actually, probably the part I found the most interesting about the Carrabis back and forth was that Kirk mentioned at one point, well, Barstool only cares about gambling. And Carrabis is not doing any gambling.
True.
So then he goes to DraftKings, and now he only does gambling. And now Kirk's doing gambling, when you come to the golf show. So, it's sort of funny how that evolution happened. I will say it's interesting. I do a little business here and there with DraftKings, and I don't see a lot of Jared's stuff anymore. I mean, I see him on
It's
Twitter
me either. I
see like his little parlays. I sometimes, put a couple schmeckles on one of those, but for the most part, I don't see a lot from him. So I actually, one real quick thing, I sort of threw half a shot at him earlier. I actually liked Carrabis on the CCK show. I actually thought that was pretty good.
I would listen to the CCK show. It was
KFC and Casey. I actually thought, because they really got honest with each other. There wasn't a lot of filter there.
I always thought all three of them just banged each other, and that was
I think
or wanted
that
to.
One,
I'll tell you what, the show wasn't as good if it wasn't true. It made the show better. I just pictured them all talking as if like they all just had some cool, sexy
I think
type deal.
I think Carabas cracked Casey wide
smashed.
open.
Yeah, there you go.
I
Heard it
think
here
that
first,
definitely
folks.
happened. Yeah,
We're not afraid to say it.
Just the vibe that you get from those two, I think that definitely happened. But I think Kirk even brings up that, or Cullinane, I forget who it was actually now, that the Barstool Radio going away hurt Jared, because that was another outlet for him to like not do just baseball stuff. And I think they talked about how CCK was a good show and that they should have done a podcast with it. They should have just kept it going in podcast form. So it's funny that you say that, Danny, because they kind of.
I was surprised that they didn't. Yeah, and Kirk seemed to like it too. And I thought Jared was good on the show. I don't think I missed him when he was gone. I think is sort of part.
Agreed.
Of it. And him coming back in the other day was cool to kind of hear from him again. But he did really get into it. I mean, the veterans fucking win, and so I mean, he did really immerse himself in the show, probably as much as only from as far as Barstool people coming to Kirk, maybe a Jeff D. Lowe, to really that sort of level of becoming a true Minifan.
No chance. No, Jeff D. Lowe and Riggs listen way more than Carabas.
I love that.
You'd have to catch Carabas up every Friday. You'd have to catch him up.
All right, you're right. You're right. Once again, David was right. I've had a couple of complete missteps here. I think what I was trying to say was he would throw himself into certain things like.
Yes, the veterans fucking win.
So,
you're
right. You're right. Bad example.
You had that thing that at the Kowloon where Justin showed up and even Carabas didn't show up too.
Yeah,
I forget what that was.
It was supposed to be for Carabas and he didn't show up. Yeah,
Justin did. That's legendary.
Yeah. Buddy, and Blind Wentz Daddy.
Done.
Yeah, it's very funny. But yeah, like I just think it's so I want to actually talk about like Barstool baseball really quick and stuff like that, because there was like a controversy last week on Twitter with that. I don't see much of Carabas' stuff anymore. Carabas, I always fuck up his name. I'm sorry. I don't see much of his stuff anymore on Twitter, Danny. You're right. I saw a lot more of it when he worked at Barstool. Maybe that's just because I follow Barstool people, and maybe like he's not in that mix anymore. So the algorithm just doesn't show him. But what I also don't see at all is Barstool baseball stuff. Like their brand in baseball is dead. And it was not dead when Jared was there. So I don't know if he's worth $1 million a year. I don't know what you can monetize with Jared, especially if Barstool now isn't gambling anymore. Like they're out of the gambling space, like as far as trying to push people to a website. But I'll tell you, their baseball brand is dead. Someone was mentioning it the other day that Dick Carl from Chicago is the one who runs it now. And you just never see stuff. Like Jared, for his faults or whatever, would bombard you with fucking posts. Like to the point where you're like, do I need to mute Jared today?
I did.
This is way too much. Yeah, like this is too much baseball for my fucking timeline. But the brand that they have now it's a zero. It's a 0.0. So I just wanted to bring that up because I saw someone on Twitter the other day kind of saying that, like, man, Barstool baseball is dead without Jared. And I actually do have to agree with that. And any thoughts, Danny?
No, I mean, I would tend to agree with that too. I never focused a lot on Barstool baseball in general. But
Barstool baseball was Jared. It was Jared.
Well, that's true. But I think, no, you're right though. Cause I would see Jared stuff online and there was interaction and he would get in the weeds with stuff and with people and go back and forth. No, I think you're spot on with that, David. I think, you don't see as much of it now. Mostly what I see is whatever Clemmer's doing, which I do tend to gravitate towards some of the Clemmer stuff because, I do enjoy listening to him, but also he does more of the nostalgia stuff. And that's more along my lines. Like I'm paying half attention to the baseball playoffs, had a few bucks on the Diamondbacks, no big deal. But in general, it was, I don't pay attention to baseball like I did 5-10 years ago. So I enjoy talking about the 95 Mariners and things like that. And once again, it circles back to the whole nostalgia aspect of it, but that's not even really officially Barstool baseball, right? That's just Clemmer doing baseball stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Carl thing, I would listen to Carl a little bit when he was on some of the Chicago shows, but now that he's sort of doing his own thing with the baseball stuff, I rarely see that promoted.
I'm just saying, you don't see clips. You don't see any of that stuff coming from like those.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time I saw a clip.
Yeah.
From that.
So I have one small tidbit that I'd like to get to, but I'm going to let you have the floor here, Danny, before we end it. If there's anything else that caught your attention or that you wanted to bring up from the show, I got a small one that really caught it, and I think you guys are really going to like it.
So I got a couple little ones, and I don't want to steal your thunder. I don't know what it is you're bringing up, so I'm just going to run down my list real quick.
That'd be
there's
funny.
There's one big bombshell at the very end that I'll save till after you do your thing. So just a couple other topics that came up. This whole Mina Kimes thing, and she was on Twitter kind of bitching about women in sports don't get treated equally, which I think the boys agreed with, but maybe not how she wanted it to. EEI ratings was a big topic for a while. Once again, Curtis kind of coming out pretending like it's a big deal. They finished second. And Kirk's point was, yeah, you finished second, but 14 points behind, which is like losing a football game by 100 points. So, fucking Curtis. This was right after that, the Chappelle Netflix special, and then Patton Oswalt took his picture with Chappelle, and then he got shit on for that. So that was kind of funny. Betty White just died. And of course, they also revisited some of the deaths from 2021, including Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, and John Madden. KFC named one of the biggest idiots in the world for the year. A little bit of Tom Warner Cosby talk.
KFC stinks. I'm done with KFC. He stinks. All right.
Well, he got an award for stinking a couple of years ago. And then just about finally, two last things. Kirk predicted Pats would win the Super Bowl that year.
Nope.
I don't think that happened, unfortunately. But he was right about, he called Antonio Brown a domestic abuser. And Mike was like, whoa, that hasn't happened yet. But sure enough, it did. So Kirk was right. So Kirk was right. I had to finish with the Kirk was right. Phew.
Yeah, got to finish with that. All right.
What you got? And then I just have one last little bit.
Yeah, so my big thing that I caught, and I don't know if you guys did. If I bring it up, I'm sure you will, because you do listen intently. Blind Mike and the Blind Mike Patreon, we are promised a live show if Blind Mike gets to 600 Patreon members. He's had 400 members on this show. Okay, he's had 400 members on the show. And I know, Danny, that you're a card-carrying, paying member. I used to be
blank owner.
Credit card
Me too. Since day one.
All right, so good for you guys. My credit card got canceled one time, and then I just never hopped back on, and that happens. But I used to pay. And
were you splitting the tip with someone? Is that what happened?
I like when financial troubles hit. Mike is the first to go, though. I fucking
So 400. He's had 400 Patreons on this show, and they promised that if he gets to 600, that he's looking at a place in Rhode Island with 100 seats. That he would do a live show, because they break down, live shows and things like that. And it's funny, on today's episode, Danny, if you re-listen, once you do listen to today's episode, they break down the Mean Girls pod and their live show and how no one was there. And Kirk brings up, he's like, Mike, I really want this to happen for you. Like, I want you to announce a live show so I can promise retirement if anyone shows up. That I'll retire if anyone shows up. That's what Kirk says to Mike on today's show, Danny. So it's kind of funny that
really? Okay.
Yeah, he says that to him on today's show. So it's kind of funny that we're re-listening, and Mike has promised to get to 600. And
bombshell.
Mike's at almost 800 members. What the fuck happened to this?
So, I'm looking at it right now here on patreon.com/blindmike, blindmike.net. As an executive gearhead board member, no big deal. I have access to see exactly how many subscribers he has. And as of today, which is October 25th, 5:36 p.m. Eastern time, there are 790 members of the Blind Mike Project.
What are we doing?
Patreon.
What are we doing? Mike, we need a live show. I know I won't get in a discount. You said that you said on this show, the one we're reviewing, that gearheads would get a discount, maybe 100 seat. So maybe I might not even get in with 795 subscribers.
As an avid listener, I can say Mike has been pretty fluid about that stance on the live show. It's changed almost a billion times. Yeah. It's like,
I'm just saying, John.
Maybe if I do
I'm
that.
I'm just saying, John. He was at 400. He said, "Get me to 600, and I'll give you people a live show." Well, I think that's kind of shitty.
That is.
It's kind of shitty to go flying past that and not give the people an hour live.
Maybe he just needed a reminder. Maybe this was maybe this is the spur in his ass to get that going.
Yeah, we should have.
Because he's promised a few things. I think he was going to get a tattoo at 500. Him and Craig were going to get matching tattoos.
They're just a bunch of liars.
One of the guys was going to helicopter his dick. I mean, just all sorts of things that haven't happened yet. So we can
blindmike.net.
We love blindmike.net.
Blindmike.net. We are
all
the
big
shows.
Fans. Why You're Laughing is the best. But
Why Are You Laughing is great.
We only want it because the people want it. We want the live show. We want to see that.
Show me that dick.
And Dave, just to say, even when people give you shit, here's my my run list here. It's blurred out on purpose. I want you reading all my shit. The one thing that was on here that I wrote down that I didn't mention was the Patreon goal for Blind Mike Project. So perfectly executed.
Nailed it.
All right. And is there anything else, Danny, that you had? You said you had one
more
thing you wanted to go through.
Very last thing. I don't know if you noticed this, Daver. They're planning Magnolia at this time.
Yes.
Kirk announces it's going to be the weekend of the Masters, right?
Yeah.
And Cullinane's like, "Oh, how are we going to watch it?" And Kirk's like, "Fucking retard." So then, basically,
that's a good call name.
But
that was a good. No matter what this is, great ending.
as they're wrapping up the Magnolia spot, and it's one of those things where you think the podcast is going to end, but you're looking and there's like 9 minutes left, and you're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah,
what's going to happen?
Best.
Guy Geller. We're introduced to Guy Francis Geller.
Oh yes, Danny. Okay, good
and
call.
Kirk says we have to have him at the live show. So, by the way, as of I have a little update here, live news, breaking news. As of, according to the Sharkey Funeral Home, in
your number one source for funeral home news.
That's right, Summit, Mississippi, zip code 39666, the devil's zip code.
All
right. As of September 7th, 2023, or a day or two after that, Guy Geller was still alive. Unfortunately, his dear wife of 66 years, Patsy Alfred Geller, passed away at age of 88 in Magnolia, Mississippi.
Danny.
Oh,
Danny, this is horrible news.
Yeah. So
Guy about 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago.
Yep. So as 6 weeks ago, Guy was still alive, but our beloved Patsy has passed and gone to see her maker. So I don't know. It might not be a good sign for Mr. Guy.
You know he's gonna go. He's only a couple days away at this point,
and he's got to be. I mean, married for 66
when
years.
You lose your love. You lose.
Patsy was a looker. I mean, it looks like a recent photo here. But not a bad looking broad. So that looks
probably
like it's good years together.
Wow, I don't think we've ever done breaking news on
that. Is great.
Now, this won't come out till Monday. This won't come out for 5 more days. So
I actually
breaking news.
Last little bit of some housekeeping here. I put together actually a pretty long list about how we can make some improvements to this show, but then to the network in general, which I'm sure I'll get criticized for. But I'm going to do an open letter to Menners via Twitter. Everyone's going to see it. I'll run it by you guys first if you want.
Yeah, that won't get berated.
Not at all.
Oh, great.
I think one of the simple things we
out.
can do. What sneak peek, real quick. One of the simple things we can do is actually cut up some clips for social media. So possibly we could have a little breaking news clip here leading up as a tease to Monday's show. And by the way, last little point on
as fast as possible, and he puts it up as fast as possible. Fuck Mondays.
Okay, that works for me as well. I
Menners
just want to mention one other thing, John. Mrs. Geller, she worked for a doctor as a clinic manager for 15 years. Dr. Fry.
Oh, beautiful. All right.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah. Circle.
So rest in peace, Patsy Alfred Geller, and long live Guy.
That's some good, Danny. That is some good work there. That is some great investigative work. Happy for you to break it here and cook it off. What I'm excited for is tomorrow, after you release this letter on Twitter, to have a 85 text chain message from Menners telling me to fuck off while I'm at work for 11 hours. I won't have seen anything. I won't have said anything, but I will be getting blamed for all of this tomorrow. I can't wait, Danny. I appreciate this.
You two might be quantum divas, but he is the diva queen.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that, Danny. I can't wait to read all these threads at work tomorrow. It's gonna be great for me. Great for me.
It's gonna be great. All right, boys.
Yeah. All right, Danny, good episode, John. Great. Thanks for jumping in again, John. You're the man. Appreciate you doing this for us all the time. And hopefully we have some guests coming up, guys. Danny's work schedule is actually going to allow him to record later at night. So I think you're going to be seeing some guests, hopefully Ziggy Robinson, VD, Andy Mayo. Some people will be able to record later in the night.
Classics.
And the classics, and we'll be hopefully have them on soon. All right, so thank you for watching. And Danny, John, have a great night.
Thank you, John. Thank you, David. Thanks for listening. Oh, it's blurred out.